I grew up with an abusive father who left my mom when I was 8 years old. It was a rough upbringing, but my mom continued to take us to church and pray for me and my two brothers, and I hated church. By the time I turned 13, I didn't want anything to do with God or church, and I started down a road of drugs and alcohol. I ended up leaving my mom's house when I was 15 and started living my life with no rules and no restraint. For the next 25 years, I would run from God and into any and everything that came across my path. I wound up living in the city with a meth addiction that lasted for 14 years. It was in this season of my life that I could say I was truly hopeless. My health was declining, I had no friends left, and I was out of options. Then there was this night. I saw a video from the Father's house, and I knew I had to get back to church, and that's all that I knew. I called my mom, and she drove down and picked me up. I told her I just wanted to do some laundry, and she told me I'd have to go to church. It was at that moment that the miracles began to happen. The drugs that I was on would have normally taken up to 2 weeks to detox from, but when I woke up the very next morning, I was completely sober. It was a Saturday, and I went to church that night. When I walked into the building, I could sense God was in the room, and I was almost shaking. When Dave said, "If you want to get saved, look up here and wave at me," I made that step that night, and everything began to change. God immediately began restoring my mind, my hope, my life. I came to church every time the doors were open, and I wanted to get baptized. Right before church that night of my baptism, I prayed that God would set me free of my 25-year cigarette addiction. God gave me faith that night to believe Him for instant deliverance. I came up out of the water and the desire was gone, and now it's been 11 weeks since I've had a cigarette, and I have no desire to ever go back. Since my salvation, water baptism, life change retreat, getting involved in several small groups, my life is being restored beyond what I could ever have imagined. Now I'm making all kinds of new friends, true friends. I serve every week at Adopt-A-Block. I'm serving as an usher. I'm active in Celebrate Recovery, and I even lead a small group. Pretty much my life consisting of God and His church, and I'm loving every minute of it. If you were to ask me, what has God done in my life? I would have to say, what hasn't He done? God is able.